People in California are pretty much priced out of investing in their own backyard in California, unless they've been a landlord for a while, or if they just have a really strong business and a really high income, like some of my friends do. My name's Jeff. I'm a doctor of pharmacy. Been in healthcare for about 15 years. Made $170,000 my peak year, and now I own 16 homes, and I make a living through real estate. And I think it's a big issue, and it's something that needs to be discussed about, like how people in California are going to invest in real estate, because it's honestly probably the fastest way to build wealth in America. And if you're pricing people out, that just means that the the standard of living for some people are going to be much worse, while the ones who hold the real estate, who are going to continue to hold the real estate because they have really good interest rates, are just going to get richer. And with Gen Z and Millennial coming up and starting to become of home buying age, it doesn't feel good to see a fixer upper in San Diego or like San Francisco on the market for like $1 million. And it's really nothing special. It's not like a McMansion like you would find in the East Coast or in like Texas or Florida. It's just a regular like 3 bedroom, 2 bath home, and it's $800 to $1 million to buy. And here's why it's the largest wealth building vehicle for most people. And it'd be such a shame if all the Californians were priced out. And we're going to talk a little bit about my solution for it later down on the video. But it's an issue because most people don't invest in stocks, in crypto. And if you do, you're probably going to be really wealthy in the future, because you understand that you have to invest in order to retire in some sort of like time in your life, unless your business is just really good and you're just a money printing machine and you don't need to invest, which there are some people like that. But at the minimum, you should be investing in index funds. It's like VT Sachs. As of now, is like getting like a 9 to 12% annualized return. But the problem with stocks is you need a lot of money to invest in it. So if you don't already have like your first $100,000, it might be a little bit tough to kind of get there, because it's really slow to go from zero to $100,000 if you only make like 6 figures. And say you have a family and you're just trying to make it, especially if you want to retire within like 2 to 5 years, which is pretty tough for a lot of people to pull off. I think most people can do it if they really tried. But yeah, it's not easy. And if you take away like the ability for new home buyers to buy in California, that's essentially like not letting them ever have a chance at one of the biggest wealth building investment vehicles. And even if you made $100,000, which is kind of like considered middle class, or at least it was. Honestly, I think middle class in California is like $400,000 a year now, because taxes and all the expenses that pretty much disintegrate all that income. You're not qualified for these $1 million homes. And again, huge problem, because people are not, who want to buy homes and like have heard about the American dream, are not going to have the opportunity. And I think it's going to cause like a lot of like social distress eventually, because again, all you're left with is pretty much investing in like cryptocurrency, which, although it's going really well right now, congratulations Bitcoin holders. Or even stocks, they're going pretty well, but it can be quite volatile. It goes up and down quite a bit. But for real estate, it's cool because the country actually helps fund your home. So instead of you needing $100,000 to invest in the stocks, you can just borrow $100,000, or in this case in California, you'd have to borrow $1 million. And the reason why it's the biggest wealth building tool is because appreciation on like real estate on average like appreciates by 4% on average annual basis, which means if you own a property that's $1 million, even if you don't own a lot of the equity, if it goes up by 4% every single year, that means you're making around $40,000 every single year without doing any extra work. So for a lot of people, that's probably like one of the few things that they're ever going to invest in. It's probably one of the best things that they'll ever invest in. And if they want to go to $100,000 or to $1 million, even if they didn't do anything else, they could do it just by owning this home. But people are starting to give up on that because you have to make like $300 to like $200,000 to be qualified for $1 million home, unless you like partner with someone, or if you get married and you guys are like dual income, no kids, and you have more income, you can probably qualify because you can have like a co-signer for this expensive home. But if you're not blessed to know a lot of people like that, it's just getting tougher and tougher, and to find the connections that you need to make it happen. And it's really bad for California overall because everyone needs to be relatively wealthy. Imagine if you just had a bunch of people who never built any wealth, and the prices of everything keeps on going up because food and groceries are probably set to go up again in 2025. Inflation's getting worse. Still, even though they say it's a soft landing. But what's going to happen is if wages don't go up significantly, the people won't be able to buy things that they need. And people will start eventually having to go to the streets. There'll be a lot of people angry that they could have lost their house. There's more violence, more crime. And that's one thing that's getting kind of scary. And I'm starting to see it more and more in California, where like I'm in Coronado Island right now, where everyone seems fine, but it's Coronado Island. So people who are here usually have money, or they're wealthy, or they're in business, or they're retired. So they've already built their wealth. But if you start going down towards like Barrio Logan, where I also hang out a lot of times, I'm worried about those people too, and like what life is going to look like in California for them. So honestly, not sure if like California has a future for those citizens if like they don't invest, or if they're not making any money, because it's just going to price them out and they're going to have to go somewhere else. And yeah, it's a big problem in California, and I don't really know the answer to it and like how they're going to fix it, except maybe like using CalHFA. But it just goes, CalHFA is like a down payment assistance program that they have here, but it gets used up so quickly. If you are like not super wealthy yet, and you're young, you're a millennial, Gen Z, and you're looking to buy your first time home, make sure you look up down payment assistance programs. Like, don't give up on the American dream here and your best chance at building wealth. Just try and make it work somehow, because there are books that would help the regular American, called the book on Low to No Money Down Investing in Real Estate by Brandon Turner. That one's really good for helping you get into a home. If it's really expensive and you just don't have the income to show, but you can technically afford it somehow, that's one way we could technically save our state and our cities, is if we just educate people a little bit more on finance and real estate. And probably the last thing I could honestly think of is just teaching people again how to invest in real estate, but maybe no longer in their backyard. No longer encourage someone to put their life savings and become house poor in California. Because if you bought a house like I did, which was like $860,000 in San Diego, my mortgage is around $5,300 every single month, and it's really expensive. If I didn't have tenants in there, I wouldn't be able to afford it. But luckily, because I was able to get creative, I was able to bring on a partner, I was able to capitalize, and that house is probably worth like $1.2 million after all the work I put into it. And that's like kind of what I want for everyone else to be able to do. But there's just not enough inventory. The regulations and rules are really hard in California to actually build homes. So the way that millennials and Gen Z are coming, a lot of them are just going to become renters, to be honest, if they don't have the drive to actually own a home. Like, a lot of people will just give up if it's too hard. It's like, imagine like you just show up at the foot of a mountain and it's huge and you're not in the best shape. Like, it's gonna be like a tough sell for somebody to say, hey, go hike this on your first try. It's kind of like that. But when the mountain is a little bit smaller and a little bit scary, like the home prices are a little bit lower, people are willing to try and like put a down payment on a house and try to become a homeowner. And I think, again, the solution is to buy in states like West Virginia, South Carolina, the Rust Belt, like Indianapolis, Ohio, Florida, places where you can actually still afford a decently nice looking home for $200,000 or less. Put 10% down on it, like use a vacation home loan. Even if you're to make minimum wage here, you're still eligible for a 10% down vacation home loan for $130,000, which is still available in places like West Virginia. And if you're worried that, like, oh yeah, they're not going to get any appreciation or cash flow, my 5 rentals in West Virginia have made $260,000 in 6 months on Airbnb. And I funded most of it with credit cards and other people's money, like private money loans. Luckily, I am in a pretty like well-established investor, so I have that privilege. And I did also seller financing. But those properties have also appreciated like by 10% every single year since 2017. It ends up being more than San Diego on a percentage basis. So you're getting if you spent $1.2 million here in San Diego and you spent $1.2 million in real estate in West Virginia, you technically should have gotten more appreciation in West Virginia if you bought at the same time, somewhere in between 2017 till now. Plus, you would have gotten probably about 5 times the cash flow because the rents here just aren't like that much more significantly more than they are in West Virginia. Like we're making $70,000 to $120,000 per home because we design it really well on Airbnb and we know how to put the right amenities in and design it correctly. And I think this will be a good starting point for most people. Like I would say, if anyone were to give up on real estate, I say don't give up. Go and buy these homes first, and eventually, if you want to get back into California real estate, sell them when they appreciate to like maybe $300,000, $400,000. So now they have their first $100,000, $200,000, and then maybe buy like another investment home in California using that money. Or if you want to double down, you can just buy 5 of those like I did and potentially produce $300,000 to $500,000 every single year from rural rental real estate. And that's why I think we have a huge problem in America right now, and the housing crisis is affecting people much more than you think in California. People are feeling the pain, and I think if you're like someone who makes a lot of money in California and you're just like, man, my $400,000 income is really not going that far. I just did a post on this. If you make $400,000 in San Francisco, you keep around $250,000, and it costs around $20,000 every single month to have a family of 4 if you're just trying to live a middle-class lifestyle. So you keep about $1,600 net every single month if you made $400,000 and you had a family of 4 and you want to live a middle-class lifestyle in San Francisco. And that's why you got to make a lot of money. So hopefully people figure this out, they catch on, and they don't just give up on real estate investing, because it is probably the best way for anyone with nothing to become something great really fast. And once they make their maybe first $1 million to $2 million, and they want to pivot and put into stocks or crypto, it's much more passive. But it's much more difficult to kind of hit the jackpot on those other 2 investments. The only other thing I would say is learn business and invest in business.